Greetings, fellow seekers of truth and unravelers of ancient enigmas. Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper, where history's most profound secrets await your keen discovery. Let the journey of discovery begin. The petrified forest of Antarctica. It's hard to imagine that this icy continent was once as warm as Italy is today. The proof lies in a petrified forest discovered in Antarctica. While the average temperature at the South Pole now sits at -61 degrees Celsius, some 90 million years ago, it could climb above 38 degrees, a difference of nearly 100 degrees. According to marine geologist Jon P. Claes, who took part in the fossil excavation, Antarctica in that era was covered in vegetation, hosting a rich ecosystem that included dinosaurs. The fossils he and his research team uncovered weren't found on land, but at the bottom of the sea, an area that was once a dense Cretaceous forest. In 2017, they discovered fossilized tree roots dating back 90 million years. And more recently, a team from Brazil found pieces of ancient charcoal that formed about 75 million years ago. These fragments of charcoal suggest that the primeval forest was once consumed by a massive wildfire. This points to the occurrence of a major climate event in Earth's distant past. Scientists now believe that our planet's climate could shift again, and that one day Antarctica might once more become a lush, humid region, as green as the Amazon rainforest is today. The search for life on Mars. The quest to find extraterrestrial life has already begun. One of the driest and most unforgiving places on Earth is now bringing scientists closer than ever to the possibility of discovering life on Mars. Chile's Atacama Desert is considered the most Mars-like terrain accessible to humans. You don't even have to leave Earth. Just stand in the middle of the Atacama, and you'll feel as if you've landed on an alien world. In 2018, researcher Lucas Horstman and his team braved this scorched landscape. According to him, the Atacama truly feels like Mars, minus the spacesuit. And it was here that they made a discovery that completely changed how we think about the search for life beyond Earth. Microscopic organisms are still surviving beneath the cracked soil. These microorganisms aren't living right on the surface. Instead, they survive more than 3 meters underground, clinging to life in conditions that are almost impossible. Relentless sunlight and virtually zero humidity. This finding forced the scientific community to reconsider its assumptions. If life can hide deep beneath Atacama, who's to say something isn't lying dormant under Mars' thin layer of dust? This means that NASA's future missions will need to bring even more powerful digging tools. Maybe a rover with a mini shovel. Or perhaps just call Matt Damon back since he seems to have a knack for surviving off-world. But digging in the desert is no easy feat. Imagine having to dig deep inside a giant oven with sunlight pouring down like a blast of ultraviolet rays. Horstman and his colleagues fought a daily battle with ground as hard as crystal. After weeks of grueling effort, they managed to achieve what once seemed impossible. Near the surface, they found only ordinary desert bacteria. But the deeper they dug, the stranger the underground world became. They uncovered a completely unique microecosystem, something never before recorded above ground. Compared to Atacama, conditions on Mars are even harsher. Not only is it frigid, but ultraviolet radiation there is strong enough to cook a human faster than a pizza in a 500-degree oven. It's like standing in a frozen microwave. Yet, deep underground, the story could be very different. Horstman believes that the gypsum minerals his team found in Atacama might be the key. If tiny organisms can survive inside gypsum beneath the Earth's surface, who's to say they aren't quietly clinging to life deep within Mars? With the right shovel, an astronaut might one day find the answer. Antarctica's ghost base. Amid the frozen darkness of Antarctica, stands an abandoned research station that continues to operate scientific experiments without any human presence. This is the Halley Research Station, situated on the Brunt Shelf since 1956. Over the years, the base has had to be moved and rebuilt several times as massive ice cracks opened up, threatening to swallow the station whole. It was at the fourth station in 1985 that scientists first discovered the ozone hole. By 2017, the mobile buildings at the new site, just 19 kilometers from the original, had to be closed due to the risk of collapsing into the widening crevasse. Since then, the station has only been able to operate part of the year. During the Antarctic winter, generators keep the power running, allowing scientists back in the UK to monitor data remotely. Today, Halley has become a ghost station, empty of people, but still quietly carrying out crucial experiments in the lonely, frozen wilderness. The terrifying giant bird. Fossils excavated in Antarctica have revealed the existence of a giant bird species belonging to the peregrine family, now extinct, but once rulers of the skies. These birds had a wingspan of up to 6.4 meters, twice that of today's largest wandering albatross. This species dominated the southern oceans for about 60 million years. When scientists dated the fossils, they found that these giant birds appeared just 1 million years after the dinosaurs went extinct. A blink of an eye in evolutionary terms. According to researcher Peter Claus from the University of California, Berkeley, peregrines were the apex predators of the ocean for millions of years with no real rivals. They were the sharks of the sky, armed with beaks lined with sharp tooth-like bony projections. Not true teeth, but keratin structures still intimidating enough to frighten any creature that crossed their path. The largest ancient animal carving on Earth. In the heart of the Sahara Desert, where sand seems to outnumber time itself, there stands a remarkable masterpiece. 2 giant giraffes carved into stone some 7,000 years ago. Known as the Dias giraffes. These are the largest animal carvings in the world. A testament to an era when the desert was a lush green savanna around 5000 BC. There were no metals, no modern tools, and certainly no electricity. Unless, of course, you believe the ancient alien theories. But assuming there were no UFOs lending a hand, Stone Age artists used flint and petrified wood to etch these 2 giraffes, each more than 5 meters tall, into the hard rock. The painstaking care and patience behind their creation are humbling. From the leopard-like spots to the large round eyes, every detail is vivid. But this raises the question, why giraffes? And why carve them onto a cliff so steep that only a climber could ever see them? Researchers believe the giraffe was a sacred symbol. With their large eyes and long necks stretching toward the heavens, they may have represented vision and a connection to the spirit world. A symbol revered by shamans and priests. Today, the Twer people live near this area, but these carvings predate their ancestors by millennia. In 2000, archaeologists found traces of an ancient lake in the Eyre region just north of Davis. This was once home to 2 Stone Age cultures, the Kiphians and the Tenarians. The Kiphians lived about 10,000 years ago. Tall, powerful people who hunted amid a green Sahara. About 8,000 years ago, the Tenarians arrived smaller in stature and turning to herding. Both cultures left behind ceramics, tools, and graves, clear signs of spiritual and religious life. Perhaps it was these very people, anonymous figures from the distant past, who were humanity's first wild artists. But the true identity of those who carved the Davis giraffes may forever be buried beneath the silent sands of the Sahara. When the last rains faded, they moved on, leaving behind a verdant era that now exists only in memory. Mirt Sand Fortress. On the dusty plateau of northwestern Saudi Arabia, about 550 m above sea level, stand the ruins of a fortress Mirt Castle, located in the ancient town of Dumat al-Jandal. Once a strategic hub in the heart of the desert, this fortress bears silent witness to the bloody conflicts that raged here nearly 2,000 years ago. At first glance, Merid looks like a massive sand castle abandoned by time. But beneath its childlike appearance lies a history written in swords and blood. Ancient records suggest the castle was built around the 3rd century CE, right before Queen Zenobia of Palmyra launched her campaign to suppress a rebellion in Dumat. When Zenobia's army arrived, they ran headlong into Merod's solid walls. The queen who had conquered Egypt in 270 and held sway over all of Anatolia never imagined that a small desert fortress could give her so much trouble. In the end, she abandoned her plans to take the stronghold and in 272 declared her son emperor only to be defeated, captured by the Romans and taken to Rome as a prisoner for the rest of her life. Merod continued to serve as a key outpost in the early days of Islam during the 7th century, but was eventually abandoned, left to stand alone amid an endless sea of sand. The ghost ship Octavius. In 1761, the ship Octavius set sail from England bound for the Far East. The voyage was already perilous, but the captain decided to prove his mettle by returning via the Northwest Passage. A fateful decision, as no one on board was ever seen alive again. The ship became trapped in the ice north of Alaska for 13 years. On October 11, 1775, the whaling ship Herald spotted the Octavius drifting near Greenland. All 28 crew members had been frozen solid below deck, their bodies perfectly preserved like ice sculptures. Legend has it that the captain's body was found seated at his desk in the cabin, pen still frozen in hand. With the ship's log ending in November 1762, that means the Octavius had been locked in ice for 13 years. No official historical record confirms the Octavius's existence outside of these tales. After the Herald left, the ghost ship was never seen again. Some say it's still wandering the Arctic seas, a phantom adrift forever in the northern fog. The world's oldest pet cemetery in Egypt. Archaeologists have uncovered a remarkable cemetery not for humans, but for beloved animals. There are no cursed black cats here, but rather dogs, monkeys, even crocodiles and baboons beneath the burning sands along the Red Sea. They discovered a 2,000-year-old burial ground for pets located in what was once the bustling port city of Bones. This isn't just some empty lot marked by a few crude stones. The cats they found still wore beaded collars. Some monkeys were buried with their favorite toys. One dog was carefully wrapped in palm leaves as if being lulled to sleep in a soft blanket. There's no doubt these animals were not sacrificial offerings, but true family pets. Dr. Marta Osipinska, an archaeologist from the Polish Academy of Sciences, insists this cemetery had nothing to do with religion or ritual sacrifice. Unlike the mass graves previously found in Egypt, where animals were killed as offerings to the gods, the creatures at Bones showed signs of age, illness, and disability, something only possible if they'd been cared for over a long period. These animals lived long, were loved, and were sent off like family members. And if you're wondering which animal ancient Egyptians loved most, the answer is undoubtedly cats. They make up 90% of the graves found. Many still wore decorated iron or colorful beaded collars. Dogs came in second, often buried inside broken jars, creating handmade ceramic coffins. Ancient Egyptians also kept monkeys as pets. One was found lying next to 3 kittens, a woven basket, and 2 rare seashells. You can just picture the lively home where both cats and monkeys scampered and played. Even a fox was discovered, perhaps a clue to a story we'll never know. And of course, there were hawks, a familiar symbol of ancient Egyptian culture. Most remarkable of all was a fragment of ancient pottery and ostrakhan scrolled with what may be an ancient message. In it, the writer assured the owner that their cats were being well cared for while they were away. 2,000 years ago, people still scrambled to find someone to watch the pets at the last minute. Through these little graves and simple potsherds, the ancient Egyptians seem to whisper to us that the love we have for our furry companions is anything but new. The Ice Age beavers. At the bottom of a frozen gravel pit in southeastern Manitoba, an anonymous man stumbled upon a strange bone. No one could have guessed it belonged to a giant beast that once roamed North America during the Ice Age. A creature larger than a black bear, fierce enough to kill a human. But in truth, just a beaver. That bone belonged to the prehistoric ancestor of the modern beaver. First, the finder thought it was from a pig. But when he noticed a tusk-like tooth, he took it to the local museum for examination. Ironically, he'd never heard of the giant beaver. And neither had most people. This was only the fourth piece of evidence of this monster's existence in Canada. Compared to today's beavers, it was truly enormous. Modern beavers can bite through a human hand with their sharp teeth. But their ancient relatives with even bigger jaws could inflict lethal wounds in a single chomp. This ancient beaver could reach up to 1.8 m in length and weigh more than 135 kilograms. Whereas today's beaver tops out at about 9 kilograms. They disappeared at the end of the Ice Age around 10,000 years ago, leaving behind the mystery of a creature that once dominated the frozen rivers. The ruins of a utopia. They were called nomads. Yet, these very people were the first to build multi-story homes like modern apartments. They established grand cemeteries and surrounded their city with a wall nearly 14 kilometers long. No longer wanderers, but builders. Alpha was divided into residential neighborhoods, political centers, and vast burial grounds. It was an early Bronze Age urban model where people not only lived, but also crafted metal weapons, axes, daggers, and knew how to defend their achievements from invaders. What's truly astonishing is the absence of any ruling class. No kings, no nobles, just a community that survived on equality. Pottery fragments here suggest there was probably no strict social hierarchy. This was a true utopia where everyone lived in peace and shared responsibility equally. So why wasn't Alpha discovered sooner? Because the city was completely hidden beneath a layer of dense volcanic rock. A natural camouflage that kept it out of sight for thousands of years. Only when satellite images revealed something odd did the world learn of this forgotten city. Dr. Ganalo, who led the excavation, says that the volcanic rock itself protected Allah from looters, turning it into a perfectly preserved time capsule. The people of Alpha didn't rush to build. They grew slowly, adapting to their environment. A model of slow and steady development that brought lasting harmony and sustainability. But no one knows what happened. Sometime between 1500 and 1300 B.C., Alpha was abandoned, gradually buried by sand for 4,000 years. No record of war. No sign of natural disaster. Just a silent disappearance. Yet what they left behind remains a buried archaeological treasure filled with hope, wisdom, and the lessons of a real-life utopia that once thrived in the heart of the desert. Hitler's frozen base. There's no solid evidence that Adolf Hitler ever built a secret base in Antarctica. Still, for many, the lack of proof doesn't mean it never happened. In the late 1930s, the Nazis displayed a special, almost obsessive interest in the frozen continent. In December 1938, they sent a small expedition to survey northern Antarctica, aiming to claim territory that already belonged to Norway. The campaign failed quickly, and with the outbreak of World War II, Germany never got another chance to venture south. The real mystery began in 1945 when a Hungarian exile named Liesel Sabel published a detailed article in a local Argentine newspaper. He claimed to have inside information that the German submarine U-530, which docked at an Argentine naval base on July 10, 1945, had been carrying Hitler and his companion Eva Braun. According to Sabel, the U-boat delivered Hitler to a secret base his group had built in Antarctica back in 1938. There in a makeshift hut among the ice, Hitler supposedly spent his final days with Eva Braun. Beyond this tale, there is no evidence for the existence of such an Antarctic base or of Hitler's last whereabouts. And yet, Antarctica's icy wilderness still holds countless secrets. Perhaps somewhere beneath the thick ice, the truth is still quietly waiting to be found. Silk Road in the sands of the Middle East. In the barren desert between Israel and Jordan, Archaeologists have uncovered something extraordinary. Silk and cotton fabrics dating back 300 years, remnants of the legendary Silk Road. According to researchers from the Israel Antiquities Authority, these textile fragments were imported from India and China, places thousands of miles away. The Silk Road, once the lifeblood of ancient trade, stretched from distant China all the way to ancient Rome, cutting across deadly deserts and treacherous mountains. Along this route, merchants carried silk, spices, and precious gems, trading them for gold, silver, and influence. Silk, in particular, was a prized commodity and symbolized prosperity, even as the Roman Empire fell, as Europe was swept by plague, and as Mongol armies thundered across Eurasia. The Silk Road continued to operate quietly. The fabrics discovered in the Arava Desert date back to the 7th century. The patterns on the cloth are identical to murals found in India's Ajanta caves, a clear sign of their origins. It's likely that this shipment was headed from India to ancient Nubia, south of Egypt, when it vanished in the trackless desert. In the silence of the wilderness, these ancient threads still hold the story of a golden era, when invisible roads connected the entire world with the finest strands of silk. The frozen Brazilian yacht. The yacht Marsfim, meaning endless sea, was once the pride of renowned Brazilian journalist and businessman João Lara Mesquita. In April 2012, during a documentary filming expedition in the icy waters off Antarctica, the vessel met disaster. On April 7, while anchored in Maxwell Bay, the yacht was battered by winds exceeding 40 knots and waves nearly 2 m high. The boat capsized, shattered by the storm, for crew members were forced to send desperate distress signals before the deadly cold claimed them. Fortunately, a nearby Chilean Navy base responded just in time, rescuing them from catastrophe. The boat wasn't so lucky. It sank in at a depth of just 9 m. The waters froze completely, encasing the yacht in thick ice. The hull split apart, imprisoned beneath the surface, a haunting sight visible through the clear Antarctic ice. 10 months later, when the ice thawed, a salvage attempt was made. But after months under ice and severe damage, the vessel was beyond repair. Hauled ashore, all that remained was a shattered wreck, its final fate to be dismantled for scrap. A prehistoric sea monster. In the Atacama Desert, the driest place on Earth, Chilean scientists have unearthed the bones of one of the most fearsome ocean predators of prehistory. The fossil was found among the parched rocks once submerged under the Pacific millions of years ago. This creature was a pliosaur, a distant relative of the killer whale, but with a bite even stronger than the mighty T-Rex. These monsters ruled these waters 160 million years ago. Archaeologists discovered part of its jaw, a tooth fragment, and several limb bones. According to Rodrigo Otero of the University of Chile, the pliosaur had a massive skull, knife-like teeth, and 4 limbs evolved into powerful flippers. Its form and strength are reminiscent of the ultimate marine hunting machines. Otto adds that the Atacama Desert is a fossil gold mine, possibly holding thousands, even millions of ancient skeletons underground. Every layer of sand, every stone could open a doorway into a lost world. The impregnable walls on the Croatian coast. The city of Dravnik stands tall, its pride undiminished after centuries of relentless sieges. The stone walls of Dravnik have seen it all from medieval invasions and Napoleon's bombardments to modern warfare. Yet, they have never fallen. Originally in the 8th century, Dubrovnik had only small limestone forts. But growing threats pushed its people to construct a formidable defense system. By the 14th and 15th centuries, the city boasted walls as high as 25 m and 6 m thick, reinforced with towers and bastions enough to repel wave after wave of invaders. In 866, the Saracens laid siege for 15 months, a test of endurance few armies of the era could withstand. But Dubrovnik held out until Emperor Basil I's Byzantine fleet broke the siege. In 948, the Venetians tried their luck and failed. In the 12th century, Serbia's Stefan Nemanja attacked again, even breaching the defenses at one point. But the city survived, whether by force or negotiation. In 1205, the Fourth Crusade in Venice forced Dravnik to submit, making it a Venetian vassal. By the 14th century, however, the city regained its freedom, further fortifying its walls for the turbulent centuries ahead. The Ottomans attacked in 1462 and 1498, but were repelled. In the early 19th century, Dubrovnik suffered over 3,000 cannonballs from a Russian assault, was then occupied by the French and finally bombarded by the British in 1814, forcing the French to surrender. One might think the 20th century would bring peace. But during the Croatian War of Independence, Yugoslav forces shelled Dubrovnik relentlessly, damaging 68% of its historic buildings. Yet, despite time and destruction, Dubrovnik endures one of the world's most remarkable fortresses. Today, these walls are not just historic icons, but a testament to the resilience of a city tested countless times and never broken. How two men outsmarted Google to expose a secret military base. Amid the barren silence of the Nevada desert, where satellite images on Google Maps had long been blurred and out of date, there exists a mysterious military installation, Tanopa Test Range. For 8 years, this area remained a digital blackout, an expanse seemingly hidden by both Google and the U.S. government. But engineer Trevor Paglen and writer Brendan Byrne weren't having it. When Google refused to update the imagery, they decided to do it themselves. Literally. Rather than wait, they purchased satellite photos from a private company called Apollo Mapping at a cost of $984.15. A steep price, but well worth it for a national secret. There was, however, a legal catch. The image license was restricted to their organization alone, so the two had to come up with a clever workaround to share their find without breaking the law. They held a private event in New York, requiring each attendee to sign an agreement to become a temporary employee of the nonprofit I-Beam. That way, everyone in the room could legally view the newest satellite images of the top-secret base. Pagan and Byrne believed the lack of imagery was due to government censorship. But when Google was asked, the answer was far less dramatic. They'd simply forgotten to update the area. According to a Google spokesperson, the company only updates zones with high search demand, and hardly anyone was interested in Tonopah. Aviso, Paglen, and Byrne's plan worked. They obtained the clearest, most current images of a site thought to be the heart of America's secret weapons and aircraft testing, including the birthplace of the F-117 Nighthawk, the world's first stealth jet. And if Batman ever joined the Air Force, surely his ride of choice. Though they didn't uncover any global conspiracies, the two helped the world get a rare look at a once-hidden base. Still, the real action happens deep underground in bunkers. No satellite can penetrate. Until Google invents see-through technology, those secrets will remain buried. The HMS Endurance. After more than a century, the exploration ship HMS Endurance was finally found lying 3.2 kilometers beneath the Antarctic Sea. The search for this wreck was considered one of the most challenging recoveries ever attempted. HMS Endurance, commanded by Sir Ernest Shackleton, set out on its 1915 Antarctic expedition. It became trapped in the wet sea ice, was crushed, and sank 107 years later. In March 2022, the ship was finally discovered. Men Unbound, the director of the search, described it as the best preserved wooden shipwreck he had ever seen. Thanks to the extreme cold, the vessel remained astonishingly intact. Even the name Endurance is still clearly visible on the stern. This miraculous preservation is due to the absence of wooding organisms in Antarctic waters. Instead of rotting away, the ship is now draped with sea squirts and sponges, A silent witness sleeping at the bottom of the frozen ocean. Ancient technology in Libya. On Libya's Mediterranean coast, the forgotten city of Ptolemies has revealed an archaeological puzzle. A strange mask, an advanced water management system, and traces of a secret religion predating ancient Greece. After more than a decade abandoned due to conflict, researchers returned to Thames in 2023 to 2024 and found more questions than answers. Founded in the 4th century B.C. by the Baraic dynasty, Thames began as a major port for the inland city of Barca. Under Roman rule, it became a prosperous trade center until a catastrophic earthquake in 365 AD nearly wiped it out. The city was rebuilt but never regained its former glory, and was ultimately destroyed during the Arab conquest in the 7th century. For centuries, it lay in ruins until archaeologists began to excavate and uncover its secrets. They found a Roman villa with a kitchen, a large courtyard, exquisite mosaics, and most notably an advanced rainwater collection system featuring an impluvium. Unlike the typical design with just one cistern, this site had two. A brilliant solution for the dry, eastern Libyan coast. During their survey, researchers also found a mask made of hydraulic plaster carved into a wall. The mysterious face remains unidentified, but is thought to be a relic of a secret religious ritual. The mask's features are reminiscent of statues found at Sloan, an ancient Berber temple 2 hours away, dedicated not to Greek or Roman gods, but to native desert deities. This suggests that even after Roman rule, the people of Tom quietly preserved their ancient beliefs, blending Berber tradition with Roman influence. These discoveries prove that Tom was not just another outpost, but a city with cutting-edge engineering and mysterious spiritual life. Excavations continue, and at top the Acropolis, rising nearly 300 meters above sea level, archaeologists hope to uncover more city walls, defensive towers, theater, and even a Roman hippodromium, the secret base beneath Pyramid Lake. In the heart of Nevada, in one of the most remote and barren corners of America, a strange shadow beneath the waters of Pyramid Lake sparked a frenzy of speculation across the internet. Some claimed it was an underwater military base. Others argued it was nothing more than the wreck of a forgotten ship. What made the story fascinating was how it was discovered by the sharp eyes of a Google Maps user. This blurry shape was unlike any ordinary rock, and bore no resemblance to the iconic pyramid-shaped formation that gives the lake its name. It was divided into 4 uneven sections, dark and silent beneath the water. Once the image hit, Reddit internet detectives went to work. Some insisted it was an underwater military installation. Others said it was a lost naval vessel. Still, others leaned toward the archaeological theory that it could be the ruins of an ancient submerged structure. One Redditor pointed out that the area around Pyramid Lake is home to several unusual military bases, including a U.S. Navy underwater warfare center that left many scratching their heads. Why would an underwater research center exist in the middle of the Nevada desert, far from any ocean? Not everyone buys the secret base theory. Some insist the shadow is just an old rotting boat that's laying there for decades. And as the internet debated whether it was an ancient spaceport or a government cover-up, someone else simply commented, "They have great cutthroat fishing there. I've camped at that lake myself." The truth remains unresolved. But as people wait for answers, Pyramid Lake is drawing new curiosity. The area was once the stand-in for the Sea of Galilee in the 1965 biblical epic, the greatest story ever told. Archaeologists believe humans have lived here since 9,500 B.C. Tools, weapons, clothing, and even mummies have been found. Those mummies, in the end, might be even more intriguing than a blurry shadow on Google Maps. Patterns in the ice. The needle ice phenomenon is one of nature's strangest wonders. It forms when ground and air temperatures diverge, pulling water from the earth and freezing it into billions of tiny ice spires that rise above the soil. In harsh climates, needle ice repeats for years. pushing pebbles aside and creating rock clusters that look like works of human art. Seen from above, these patterns resemble ancient drawings. What's astonishing is that such patterns are also found on Mars. They prove that the red planet once had oceans and still retains moisture in its soil. Tonight, vapor rises, forming tiny ice spikes. And over thousands of years, they etch delicate designs into the planet's surface. The meteorite that fell in Somalia. Recently, the scientific community was stunned by the discovery of two entirely new minerals, substances never before recorded on Earth. Even more remarkable is where they came from. A massive meteorite that landed in the deserts of Somalia. The meteorite was found near the town of Lali. And it is enormous. Almost 1 m long. About 1.3 m high. And a meter wide. Weighing in at 16.88 tons. It ranks among the 10 largest meteorites ever to strike our planet. Experts believe the meteorite is ancient. An object this size crashing through the atmosphere should have caused a major event. Yet, there are no historical records of any explosion. That suggests it had been buried in the ground for a very long time until a mining company accidentally unearthed it, while searching for rare minerals. A small sample was sent to the University of Alberta, where researchers began analyzing the meteorite's composition. In the electron microscope probe laboratory, they confirmed the existence of two new minerals never before seen in nature. Chris Hurd, a member of the research team, could hardly contain his excitement. With only about 4,000 minerals known on Earth, adding two more is a major achievement. No one yet knows what these new minerals might mean for future technology. But their potential shouldn't be underestimated. In fact, scientists suspect a third new mineral may exist in the meteorite. Still awaiting confirmation. The story of the Somalia meteorite isn't just about a rock falling from the sky. It's a reminder that the universe still holds countless secrets waiting to be discovered. The road to Atlantis. In April 2022, oceanographers aboard the EV Nautilus made a strange discovery on the Pacific Ocean floor off the coast of Hawaii. At a depth of 1,030 m near the summit of the Nootka undersea volcano, they spotted an evenly spaced Yellowstone path, almost as if it had been paved with bricks. The discovery happened live on camera with viewers around the world watching in amazement. The path looked like it could lead to a sunken city, possibly Atlantis or some other place swallowed by the sea thousands of years ago. The area is part of a vast undersea volcanic range with the tallest peak just 60 m below the surface. Scientists have only surveyed 3% of the region, so the possibility of finding ancient ruins can't be ruled out. However, experts say the Golden Road is most likely a geological phenomenon. It appears to be a brick-laid road, but there's no evidence it leads to a lost city. Even so, its existence keeps hope alive that deep beneath the waves, there are still mysteries humanity has yet to uncover. The ship trapped in ice. In 2014, an Antarctic expedition ship became trapped in a vast sea of ice. The MV Academic Tucholsky, carrying members of the Australasian Antarctic expedition, was suddenly locked tight for 10 days right over Christmas. With no way out, the crew called for help, summoning a Chinese icebreaker, which was soon joined by an Australian vessel. Earlier, a French icebreaker had tried to reach them, but was forced to turn back when the ice proved too thick even for it to break through. 52 people, scientists and tourists, remained stranded until a helicopter rescue team arrived to get them out safely. The ship had gotten stuck while navigating clear water toward the tiny Hatchman Islands. Then the water froze so rapidly that no one had time to react. On Christmas night, the captain realized there was no longer any hope of reaching open sea, even though it was just 2 nautical miles ahead. In just a few days, that distance had grown to 20 nautical miles, showing just how quickly and brutally Antarctic ice can form. Thanks to international cooperation, the ship was finally freed. But it was a rescue that came down to the wire. Forgotten history in the Syrian desert. In 2009, amid the desolate landscape of the Syrian desert, Archaeologist Robert Mason from the Royal Ontario Museum stumbled onto something strange while surveying the ancient monastery of Deir Marissa. Scattered stones around the monastery didn't fit the Roman or Christian periods. They were much older. Digging deeper, he found primitive stone structures hidden in the desert floor. Estimates suggest they could be up to 10,000 years old, a time when this now barren land was once green, fertile, and full of life. Mason believes these might have been animal traps from the Neolithic era, used for hunting in what was once a lush savanna. Deir Mar Musa Monastery itself is full of mysteries. Built around the 4th century, it lasted until the 19th century before being damaged by earthquakes. It wasn't until the 1990s that the monastery was restored and brought back to life. However, according to Mason, before it became a place of worship, the structure may have served as a Roman watchtower guarding the eastern desert approaches to Damascus. Within the monastery's ancient stonework, there may be layers of history still lying dormant, from the Roman Empire to the footsteps of prehistoric hunters. In the silence of the desert, the echoes of the past are still waiting to be uncovered. The giant monster egg. In 2011, researchers made a strange and massive discovery in Antarctica. After years spent quietly sitting in the Chilean National Museum of Natural History collection, the mysterious specimen was finally identified. A giant egg laid by a marine reptile 66 million years ago. When a team from the University of Texas analyzed it, they found the egg to be about 30 centimeters long, the largest soft-shelled egg ever discovered. In fact, it is the second largest egg known from any animal of any kind anywhere. Paleontologists believe it was laid by a mosasaur, an ancient sea monster long since extinct. Its huge size suggests the creature that laid it must have been terrifyingly massive. The egg shape resembles that of modern lizards or snakes, but at a scale that dwarfs all living reptiles. This egg belonged to a giant of the deep. According to researcher Lucas Leandro, the egg is larger than a human head. While eggs from today's largest reptiles still fit in the palm of your hand. While science has yet to determine exactly which species laid it, everyone agrees it was the work of a prehistoric sea monster, a ruler of the oceans millions of years ago. Base rock, the kind that could sink a fleet. At the Princess Elizabeth Research Station in Antarctica, a team of scientists made an astonishing discovery: a massive chondrite trapped in the ice. They had been searching for meteorites thought to be scattered across the Nansen ice field in late January, when they suddenly came across an 18-kilogram space rock, the largest specimen found in East Antarctica in the past 25 years. Antarctica has long been considered one of the best places on Earth to hunt for meteorites. Not because it receives more space rocks than other places, but because amid the endless white, the black stones from space are incredibly easy to spot. This giant chondrite, about the size of a pumpkin, was just one among hundreds of samples collected. By the end of their expedition, the team had gathered a total of 75 kilograms of meteorites, with 425 samples carefully packaged to bring back to the lab. Thanks to the perfect contrast between black rock and white ice, Antarctica has become Earth's meteorite treasure chest, a place where fragments from space still lie in wait, ready for humans to find among the endless ice. The second Area 51 is discovered. It seems the government always needs more underground space to hide UFOs. A new base not far from the original Area 51 has been discovered. And according to alien enthusiasts, it's the warehouse for extraterrestrial technology. The discovery was made by Scott Waring, a self-proclaimed UFO expert and full-time Google Maps sleuth. Scott claims to have found a new underground facility about 55 miles northeast of Area 51. He believes it's where alien technology is stashed. And as far as he's concerned, one base under Pyramid Lake and another in the Nevada desert just aren't enough. Scott didn't rely solely on Google Maps, which according to him is heavily censored by the government. He also used satellite imagery from other sources to back up his claim. The images show gigantic sliding doors out in the desert, like the garage doors of an interplanetary spaceship hangar. If I needed a place to park a Star Cruiser, this would be the perfect spot, Scott says. Adding to the mystery, Scott found sand mounds partially covering the facility. He believes the government is burying evidence of top-secret experiments. These piles of earth are nothing less than temporary graves for broken alien tech. There's no hard evidence. But Scott is convinced an underground tunnel system is being expanded beneath Nevada, a top-secret project where the U.S. government is quietly decoding alien technology. So, what do you think is buried out in the wilds of America's deserts? Is humanity really reverse engineering UFOs deep underground? The answer is still unclear. But with just a computer and a few hours on Google Earth, anyone could become the first to witness a secret hidden for decades. Top secret military tech leaked. Google Maps, the greatest party crasher of the modern age. While the U.S. military was quietly developing a stealth drone called Manta Ray, the all-seeing eyes of the internet satellites struck again. Manta Ray is an underwater robot designed to glide beneath the waves as silent and deadly as its namesake. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, released concept images of the Manta Ray. It looks like something straight out of science fiction. Sleek body, broad fins, long tail, and a design that makes it nearly invisible in the ocean's depths. Developed by Northrop Grumman, Manta Ray can operate for long periods without resupply or human intervention. It can slip deep into enemy waters, conduct surveillance, deploy smaller drones or sensors, all in total silence. The most remarkable feature: it's entirely autonomous. That means zero risk to human life and opens the door to missions in places no person could ever reach. DARPA has also revealed that Manta Ray can hibernate on the seafloor, clinging to rocks and waiting for a wake-up command. Imagine thousands of these robot rays lying dormant in the ocean, ready to spring to life for surveillance or attack at any moment. Then the strangest thing happened. Despite all efforts at secrecy, some people claim to have spotted a Manta Ray prototype on Google Maps at a military facility near Port Hueneme, California. A mysterious stingray-shaped object was seen docked beside a pier. It could be a Manta Ray or just a speedboat under a tarp. Either way, the online community is convinced. Some say the government is running tests under the cover of ocean research. Others believe this is just the tip of the iceberg, suggesting an entire fleet of underwater drones might already be silently patrolling the seafloor. If that's true, the future battlefield won't be in the skies or on land, but deep beneath the waves, where invisible machines wage silent war. Hidden life. A chain of mysterious caves has been discovered in Antarctica, where scientists believe it may be warm enough to support life, both plant and animal. But what's hiding inside remains a mystery. Australian researchers from the Australian National University found these caves deep beneath the continent's icy surface. They were formed by steam escaping from Mount Erebus, one of Antarctica's most dangerous volcanoes. The warm vapor has created a maze of tunnels and caves beneath the ice, keeping the inside temperature surprisingly mild, sometimes as high as 25 degrees. Sunlight filtering through the thin ice is enough to allow some plant life to grow. Scientists think these caves could harbor moss, algae, and small invertebrates, perhaps even tiny creatures unknown to science. For now, though, it's all speculation until someone ventures in and searches for life in this frozen labyrinth. The Soviet submarine base rises again, among the many secrets of the Cold War now being unearthed. Russia is digging back into the past as part of its new military campaign. One of the ghosts resurrected is the underground submarine base in Balaclava, Crimea. A mysterious structure Moscow is said to be bringing back to life after decades of silence. Known by its chilling code name, Object 8259149. The base was abandoned, looted, and eventually turned into a museum. Families once wandered its cold corridors, marveling at rusted submarines and the nuclear relics of another age, as if visiting dinosaur bones. But according to Ukrainian activists, The museum's glory days are over. Floating barriers have been installed at the harbor entrance. A clear sign Russia is changing the blood and reverting the site to a military stronghold. Built in 1961, the facility could have been ripped straight from a James Bond villain's lair. A tunnel over 550 m long, drilled through solid rock. Soviet engineers once dreamed of a fortress that could survive a nuclear strike. A place where submarines and crews could wait out the end of the world. Meanwhile, the average person's modern apartment can barely handle a regular storm. The first hints of the base's revival surfaced in 2022 when Ukrainian sources noticed unusual construction near the entrance. With Ukrainian sea drone attacks ravaging Russia's naval base in Sevastopol, it's no wonder Moscow wants to shelter its fleet in a blast-proof hideaway. However, according to defense expert John C.K. Daly, the base likely no longer serves submarines. Today's modern Kilo-class subs are too big for its aging tunnels. Instead, Russia may be hiding surface ships here, trying to dodge the nightmare of sea drones, the strangest and most troubling weapon they now face in the conflict. So, what comes next? The return of Soviet spy pigeons. A TikTok trend inspired by the KGB. Or maybe a shocking discovery from Antarctica. All it takes is a blurry Google Maps image to set the internet ablaze. An eagle-eyed Facebook user spotted a strange square shadow deep in Antarctica, sparking wild theories about a secret door. Is this the entrance to a lost Nazi base? A hidden U.S. government HQ? The home of ancient ice gods? Or maybe it's just a camera glitch? Whatever the cause, conspiracy fever spreads fast. The post went viral, reviving the classic theory that Nazi remnants fled to Antarctica after World War II to build an underground base in the ice. There's nowhere colder or deadlier to call a new home. Strangely enough, the idea isn't entirely baseless. In 1938, Hitler did send an expedition to Antarctica, not to build a bunker for post-war survival, but to harvest whale oil to keep the machines running smoothly. After the war ended in 1945, people began to wonder, what if not all the Nazis were caught? What if some escaped and built a frozen fortress complete with flying saucers, laser weapons, maybe even the world's first gluten-free cafe? The story caught fire when German submarines showed up near Argentina after the war. That's when the wild tale was born. Hitler didn't die in his bunker, but slipped away to the icy south. Scientists have spent decades trying to stamp out the legend. French researchers analyzed Hitler's teeth and skull, confirming he died in Berlin in April 1945. Not in an ice cave, not in Brazil with a fake mustache, and not sipping espresso on the dark side of the moon, unless he had a double perfect enough to fool science itself. So, what is that mysterious square shadow? Marine geologist Colin Summer has nearly rolled his eyes out of his head. He believes the Nazi base rumors grew from Germany's wartime experiments with advanced aircraft and missiles, the same technology that later fueled the Nazi UFO craze. When the war ended, those rumors only got weirder. That top German scientists took their blueprints for flying saucers and vanished into the ice. If it's not a Nazi base, what then? Some believe it's the entrance to Agartha, the mythical underground city of ancient beings. Or maybe it's just a giant ice cave. Not as exciting, but much more likely. Then there are those convinced it's the headquarters of extraterrestrials, where ET lives peacefully in an ice house far from Earth. Where does that mysterious doorway lead? The answer still lies buried beneath 1,000 years of Antarctic ice. The immortal city of the East. If Rome is called the Eternal City with its Colosseum, the Vatican, and legendary history, then in the East, there's a city just as worthy of that title. MV. The name may sound modest, but this ancient metropolis in Turkmenistan, though now reduced to ruins, still refuses to be forgotten. For thousands of years, MV was a cultural and political center, though today only rubble remains. Its legacy endures. The story of MV began as a small village over 8 000 years ago. Part of the Bactria Margiana culture. A place where agriculture and livestock herd herring mixed and flourished. Over time, that village grew into a great city, a hub of civilization long before Rome ever existed. Across countless dynasties, MV always held strategic importance. In the 6th century B.C., the Aeonid Persian Empire conquered MV, folding it into a vast domain. In Zoroastrian texts, it was called Muru. By the 4th century B.C., Alexander the Great swept in, renamed it Alexandria, and then the Susids changed it again to Antiochia Margana. The city passed from the Susids to the Greco-Bactrians, the Parthians, the Sassanids one after another, but always prospering. By the 3rd century, MV became a Buddhist center, home to monasteries and scholars who helped spread the faith. But glory is always fleeting. In 1221, Genghis Khan's Mongols descended, destroyed the city, and massacred millions. MV was erased, its people scattered, and the Golden Age ended. For centuries after, MV dwindled to a fragile town, passed from hand to hand until 1785 when Persian Shah Merid razed it completely and forced the last inhabitants to leave. Today, MV's walls are nothing more than piles of bricks, and there's not even a coffee shop bearing its name. But the city's legacy lives on through history books, stories, and those still fascinated by a city that was once the heart of an empire. MV is an immortal city in its own way. The lost city beneath Cuba's ocean. On the floor of the Atlantic, in a deep and shadowy realm, there lies a structure that simply shouldn't be there. A sunken city as mysterious as the abandoned capital of a mermaid kingdom. The discovery has baffled scientists. Some even refuse to admit it exists. In 2000, the Canadian company Advanced Digital Communications was surveying the seafloor off Cuba's coast when they stumbled on strange structures. Sonar images showed neatly arranged stones with obvious symmetry. A year later, marine engineer Pauline Zalitsky and her husband Paul Weinswag sent down a remote robot to film and confirm there are massive granite blocks. Some as long as 3 m and as wide as 2 on January 2nd. Some stacked like pyramids. This could not be random natural formation. Someone had to build them. But who and how? Pauline and Paul believe the structures are over 6,000 years old. Older even than Egypt's pyramids. They theorize that this was once a city on land sunk by volcanic activity much like Atlantis in legend. But experts remain skeptical. Geologist Manuel from Cuba's Museum of Natural History insists the structures are too deep. 6,000 years of tectonics wouldn't be enough to sink them that far. It would take at least 50,000 years. Zalitsky counters that the city may have once stood on a 160 kilometers long land bridge connecting Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula with Cuba before it vanished beneath the waves. Though the debate continues, the existence of these orderly stone blocks on the ocean floor remains an unsolved mystery. And in the deep waters, the question waits silently for someone to unlock it. The secret military base hidden in plain sight. Not all military secrets are buried beneath ice or locked away in mountains. Some hide right in front of us in places no one would expect. Like under a sports stadium. For example, that's the case with the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia. For decades, it was known only as a luxury hotel where the elite played golf and dined on shrimp cocktails. But hidden deep beneath the gilded hallways was one of America's most secret bunkers. Built during the Cold War. The project was named Greek Island. It was designed to shelter all 535 members of Congress if nuclear war broke out. In the event Washington, D.C. was bombed, politicians would be evacuated to Greenbrier where they could survive underground in bedrooms, meeting rooms, and even a private television studio. The secret came to light in 1992 when the Washington Post exposed the truth. The bunker was immediately decommissioned. And today it's part of the hotel's tour. Tourists can walk in and see the emergency bunks once reserved for lawmakers. while the rest of humanity might have turned to radioactive dust. Other sites remain active and just as strange. In Norway, there's the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, a structure that looks straight out of science fiction, but is actually a vault storing all the world's crop seeds. It's a backup hard drive for humanity, buried deep inside an icy mountain near the Arctic. Yet, many believe places like this are part of a global doomsday network. Underground bunkers linked around the world, ready to shelter the rich and powerful when the end comes. The strangest thing is some of these places may be visible right now on Google Maps. From square burn marks in the desert to odd geometric patterns in the middle of nowhere. Amateur detectives have marked dozens of mysterious locations, though no one really knows what they are. Are they radar stations? Drone test ranges? UFO landing pads? Maybe nothing at all. Or maybe everything. Because in the age of satellite imagery and open-source intelligence, no secret stays buried forever. Not even those lying under the ocean, the desert, or the tinfoil hats of conspiracy theorists. Just open Google Maps. Zoom in on the forgotten corners of the world. Who knows, a strange discovery could be waiting. The Roman traffic system. From Libya, the story returns to ancient Rome, where people once faced a problem very familiar to our modern age. Traffic jams. Before the volcano buried Pompeii in 79 AD, its streets were clogged with noisy chariots, causing chaos and damaging the roads. City officials came up with a solution that still earns respect today. Archaeologists have discovered that large stones were deliberately placed to block 4W-wheeled carts from entering the city center. Professor Andrew Wallace-Haddle of Cambridge University notes that Roman authorities were obsessed with keeping residential neighborhoods quiet and free from chariot disturbances. On Pompeii's famous Valle Abbondanza, streets were purposely narrowed and stones set as markers, making it impossible for vehicles to pass. It wasn't just random obstruction. It was a way to ensure safety and quality of life. Even Roman poets like Juvenal once complained about the racket from chariots at night, loud enough to keep emperors awake. As a result, Pompey banned 4W-wheeled carts entirely from streets near important places like the Forum. This allowed people to enjoy a quieter, safer environment. More than 2,000 years ago, the Romans understood that noise and congestion affect daily life. Those small blocking stones in Pompeii aren't just remnants of the past. They're proof of an advanced approach to urban planning that modern cities are still trying to learn from. Treasure on the French glacier. In 2013, a mountaineer on Mont Blanc, France, stumbled upon a remarkable treasure. Embedded in the ice, he discovered a metal box filled with emeralds, sapphires, and rubies. Sparkling gemstones buried for over half a century. Experts determined the treasure had belonged to a plane from India that crashed on Mont Blanc in 1966. The box was valued at roughly $340. The climber turned over the entire trove to authorities following French law. That act of honesty was ultimately rewarded. 8 years later, local officials awarded him half the proceeds, totaling $169. This treasure tells not only of a tragic crash that claimed 117 lives, but also of the secrets that still lie frozen in Mont Blanc's ice after so many decades. The strange protruding-eyed snake. Across the burning sands of the Arabian Peninsula in southwestern Iran, there's a bizarre little creature quietly slithering through the desert. A snake so goofy-looking it could have come straight out of a cartoon. This is the Arabian sand boa. Scientific name Eryx giari. This tiny snake not only survives but thrives in one of the harshest environments on Earth. While humans can barely endure the scorching desert heat, this snake glides effortlessly through the sand as if it were enjoying a breezy day at the beach. What makes it truly stand out are its huge bulging eyes sitting right atop its head, almost as if someone glued 2 plastic beads onto a toy snake. Some joke that its silly face makes prey laugh so hard they forget to escape. But don't be fooled by its goofy look. Those odd eyes are its secret weapon. The Arabian sandboa can bury itself completely beneath the sand, leaving only its strange eyes poking above the surface. When prey, typically stub-toed lizards, beluche rock lizards, or worm snakes, approaches, it lunges in a flash. The victim barely realizes those ridiculous eyes have been watching all along. Comical as it looks, this snake only grows to about 16 in and is totally harmless to humans. Compared to its larger serpent relatives, it seems almost pitiful. Even when its eggs hatch after about 9 weeks, the mother has to help the babies break free as their teeth aren't sharp enough to do it themselves. Fortunately, the Arabian sandboa is not considered endangered. They still inhabit deserts across Arabia, quietly living simple lives beneath the hot sand without needing rescue from anyone. Cold War fossils. During the Cold War, the United States carried out a secret project called Project Iceworm. In 1966, they quietly dug into a section of northwestern Greenland to build a nuclear missile base beneath the ice, creating a launch site aimed directly at the Soviet Union. The project was kept under wraps for decades, and it's still hard to believe the U.S. military ever attempted something so audacious. The idea of a secret ice base sounds more like a spy movie plot than a real military operation. But Project Iceworm ultimately failed. Camp Century. The base built for the project was abandoned along with the ice cores taken during initial construction. At the time, those ice cores were hardly valued. They ended up forgotten for decades in a freezer in Denmark. Not until 2019 did a team of scientists re-examine them and discover something extraordinary. Fossilized plant fragments. The remains of life from millions of years ago. These fossils proved Greenland hasn't always been covered in ice. It was long thought Greenland's ice sheet had lasted for 3 million years. But the evidence told a different story. At one point during the last 6 million years, Greenland lost its ice, becoming tundra, before the glaciers returned to blanket the continent once again. The forgotten magic of Mesopotamia. Before Hogwarts. Before the Salem witch trials. And certainly before you bought a crystal from an online store. The ancient Mesopotamian civilization was immersed in the world of magic. Ancient clay tablets reveal a realm filled with sorcerers, witches, exorcisms, cursed figurines, ritual fires, and a demon named Pazuzu. Around 700 B.C., a skilled sorcerer carved onto 9 tablets a masterpiece of ritual known as Mushu, a guide to exorcisms with over 100 incantations, detailed ceremonies, and instructions on burning witch effigies to ashes. These practitioners were not wanderers, but trained specialists in temples. They read ancient texts and called upon gods to banish evil spirits. In Mesopotamian society, magic was everywhere. As natural as ordering an oat milk latte today. Having nightmares of demons. Call an exorcist. Feeling cursed. Burn a witch effigy. Dreaming of being possessed during pregnancy. Wear a Pazuzu amulet to protect your child. The same people who invented writing, the wheel, and the first cities also believed the world was surrounded by supernatural forces, both good and evil. They paved the way for science while offering sacrifices to underworld demons. Science and magic were inseparable. At the Louvre today, there is a little-known artifact called the Tablet of the Underworld. It's not a metal album cover, but a small bronze statue of Pazuzu engraved with ancient exorcism spells. This image depicts the sun god Utu as a divine surveillance camera. 7 gallow demons dragging souls to the underworld. A possessed patient lying on a bed. And 2 sorcerers dressed in fishtail robes performing rituals by flickering firelight. Pazuzu, later infamous from The Exorcist, was originally a Sumerian entity revered as a protector of women and infants against the demonist Lamashtu, who kidnapped and devoured children. With a lion's head, wide wings, and a scorpion's tail, Pazuzu used his own dark power to fight other evil spirits and safeguard humans. The Tablet of the Underworld is one of the most vivid proofs of how obsessed the Sumerians were with demons. Possession. And magic. About 30% of all surviving Akkadian cuneiform writings are about magic, omens, and the supernatural. That's like 1/3 of your library consisting entirely of fortune-telling, spells, and mystical Reddit threads. And here is the strangest part. They had temple schools dedicated to training exorcists and healers. The first medical schools blending science with magic. Learn to mix potions, master incantations, diagnose symptoms of possession, and don't forget the demon anatomy exam. On Thursday, the Spanish bomb. In January 2022, in the town of Frel, Spain, a bomb from the Spanish Civil War was discovered, reviving terrifying memories of the past. While a building was undergoing renovation, an elderly resident who had survived the war happened to pass by. He remembered that as a 6-year-old child, fascist planes had bombed that very building, and not all the bombs had exploded. That memory compelled him to warn the workers. Construction stopped immediately, and a bomb squad with metal detectors was called in. They found the massive bomb dropped by the Italian Air Force when it supported Franco during the war, lying dormant for over 80 years. Its explosive power was enough to flatten the entire building. It was sheer luck that the man appeared at the right moment, and even luckier that his childhood memory saved the neighborhood from a potential catastrophe. The footprints at White Sands. At White Sands National Park in New Mexico, scientists uncovered Ice Age footprints that tell the story of an ancient world. On the white sand, tracks of giant ground sloths, dire wolves, ancient camels, and mammoths towering over 4 m high are still visible. But what excited researchers the most were the human footprints. Forensic analysis showed that one person had crossed the area and then returned on the same day. There were also tracks of someone moving quickly carrying a child in their arms. These footprints intersected with those of a giant sloth which had stood on its hind legs, and sniffed the air, perhaps sensing the presence of humans. This discovery pushes back the timeline of when humans first set foot in North America instead of 13,000 years ago as long believed. The evidence suggests our ancestors were here thousands of years earlier. Stone Age aliens deep in a remote cave within the jungles of India, where the air is thick with the dust of a time before language existed. Ancient paintings believed to be over 10,000 years old pose a question so profound it unsettles both scientists and the public. Did early humans encounter extraterrestrial beings? This is the wilderness of Chhattisgarh, where a single beam of flashlight across the rock walls reveals bizarre figures. Half human, half animal beings, hovering discs, and groups of visitors who seem to belong to an interstellar civilization searching for a landing spot among the mountains. Archaeologists scratch their heads, while conspiracy theorists simply say, "Told you so." These are not just prehistoric art. They look like a cosmic story carved in stone long before human civilization began. Among the familiar depictions of people, deer, and daily life scenes, there are anomalies no one can explain. Stray giraffes, an animal not native to India, or creatures resembling kangaroos, which only exist in Australia. How could a Stone Age artist carve the likeness of a kangaroo in an Indian cave 12,000 years ago? Did aliens bring illustrated books? Or perhaps they took those ancient artists on a tour to the edge of the world. And then there are the images impossible to ignore. Hovering discs, floating spheres, and faceless humanoid figures that look as though they stepped out of a secret Area 51 base. Some wear hoods. Others appear to hold objects resembling ray weapons or tools from another world. If early humans simply carved what they saw, why do spaceships and strange beings appear in their art? And why do they appear simultaneously across continents? These enigmatic figures are not unique to India. Similar depictions exist in Australia and other sacred sites. In Australian caves, 5,000-year-old rock art, known as Weena, portrays beings with large heads, big eyes, and no mouths, eerily similar to the gray aliens of modern UFO lore. In Utah's Barrier Canyon, rock paintings show tall humanoids with insect-like eyes, and elongated bodies. In Kakadu National Park in Australia, figures with hooded heads stand guard like frozen space guides locked forever in ancient pigment. How can we believe that ancient communities separated by half the globe with no contact all imagine the same? Aliens? Or were they recording something that truly happened? Something modern science stubbornly refuses to acknowledge. No one knows for sure what those prehistoric artists saw. They may have looked up at the sky and witnessed strange craft, powerful gods, or simply eaten the wrong kind of mushroom during foraging. But one thing is undeniable. They left behind a stone message for the future. And now our task is to ensure that memory is not forgotten. If you find these mysterious stories fascinating, leave your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next discoveries. We'll see you in the next video.